everyone. I am Debra Pascali-Bonaro, the director of the documentary Orgasmic Birth in the childbirth class, Pain to Power Childbirth. And I am so excited to be here today with Valeriana Pasqua-Masback. And I don't even want to say how long we've known each other, right? It like dates us because it's been a long journey together. And I've been so blessed to not only learn from you, but attend births with you and to have you as an orgasmic birth midwife. When I first had this dream of creating a documentary, you were right there with support and love and midwifed me through some of my challenges. But I also want to read a bit of your bio because I didn't even know some of it when I was getting this and want people to know. So she's a nurse, a doula, a home birth assistant, and she began her work over 35 years ago. Wow. And I remember you like carrying your own.
I know you as long as my daughter is
and how
alive.
old is she?
She's 29 because I brought her to your doula workshop in Indiana when she was 5 months old.
I remember you with her in the baby carrier. That's how we first met. I still see you in my head often, like just carrying her.
We used to have Snugglies then.
Yes, that was the only brand we had, right? We had no other option. Now it's like overwhelming how many options you all have. So where was I? She presently maintains a private practice in New York and New Jersey, providing home birth, holistic well woman care, and life coaching. Another like really important aspect of what you do. In 1992, Valeriana received her graduate degree from Columbia University, and there, I kind of probably knew that, but I forgot you graduated from Columbia. She was one of the contributing midwives in our award-winning documentary, Orgasmic Birth, The Best Kept Secret. She's been interviewed in the New York Times, WOR Radio, and numerous other publications advocating for home birth. Valeriana has been a mentor to emerging midwives and myself, and leads inspiring presentations and workshops on a variety of birthing, alternative wellness, and coaching topics. And she lives in Rockland County, New York, where I am right now. I am blessed to be sitting here in her office, which is so special. And she mentions of her husband of 45 years, which we'll be having dinner together with both our husbands later, Kevin. She has 2 grown children and 3 grandboys and 1 more on the way. So Valeriana, thank you so much for being here with us.
Yeah, this is wonderful. Thank you. So I wanted to do this because of my experience of knowing how hormones really play a part. And you know, in the beginning, when I first started my practice, I had no idea what was really happening and why certain attributes that women would have, or attitudes women had towards their pregnancies and towards their birth. And then of course the environment and the things that come in and out of their lives and how that played a part. I didn't know that that's what was going on was all the hormones, and still Orgasmic Birth came along, and reading Michelle O'Donnell and Sarah Buckley, and I just, you know, now it all makes sense. So what I thought I would do is do a few things. I'd like to read a few of my clients' texts and emails.
Yeah, so important.
When I asked them what were the, how did the hormones play a part in their birth? And then from there, maybe some practical ways that I guide my clients to finding methods, ways, preparation. And I can't really stress enough that really the kind of preparation we're really looking at is the preparation in pregnancy for the birth.
Yes.
I mean, it's wonderful if you're, you know, going to have, you know, all of these wonderful things at your birth, and you're really concerned about having a doula and, you know, all the positioning and the foods to eat and the environment to create. but it's the inner preparation that is just so remarkably important, Debra. And you know this, so
yeah,
I'm not
I couldn't
really
agree more.
right. So I really should be facing all of you guys. But so I want to just read a few of the things that beautiful. What is the seminar ID? Is there an ID for the seminar? Am I being asked? Does anybody know that?
Oh, and I don't know. You had to register and then they were given a link.
So she's not seeing it. That's my sister. So let's see. Here, this is beautiful. So Grace says, when I started to push in my bedroom, I felt very claustrophobic, overly directed, like everyone was watching me, and my labor slowed down. I got very in my head. So I moved into the kitchen alone and moved in my own space, and my own labor sped up, and I pushed the baby out in a space that I felt very right for me. Very mind-body connection.
Oh, that's
and
beautiful.
Yeah, it is. And you create a space in the physical space, but it's the inner space that's really important. And I really wanted to talk about this really mostly, and I'm going to talk about a lot of other things, is that the people at your birth and what their role is, and that the people at your birth are the people that are there for you and that are there to be part of your team, a part of your support system, that anybody that's there that is sitting or watching you expecting something is going to make you feel like you're performing for someone. And this is not about a performance. It's very low. This is very reptilian brain, low brain. And we're very, very similar to animals in that way. Horses will not labor. Animals will not go into labor until they're completely alone. And Niles Newton did this, kind of study many years ago. It was really like the first study that was done on the hormones, I think, and where he put a mouse in a bowl and he put it on the lab table, and he just every day waited and looked, and there were no little mice, and there were no little mice. He knew what he was doing, but he covered the bowl, and the female mouse went into labor and had her baby. And we know our dogs will find, the dirty laundry in the bottom of the closet and the cat underneath the bed. So we really want to foster, cultivate privacy, create the atmosphere around us physically, but really within ourselves. So some of the practical ways, and I'm going to every so often read another one of my clients' experiences because they're quite beautiful. I think the first thing that we really want to do when we first get pregnant, or where we're looking to get pregnant, is to read really beautiful stories about pregnancy. So Ina May's book, and there's a number of books, but Ina May's book, the beginning part of her book is just so beautiful, and also Spiritual Midwifery, though it is dated, but if you can get through all that, it's kind of fun to read it because it's dated and all the language in there and looking at the pictures, but just to be able to really hear beautiful stories, because we're so inundated with fear-based mongering of something of gloom and fear is going to somehow creep up around you and going to grab you. And these are our triggers, and we really have to look at our triggers and see what those triggers are and kind of make peace in a lot of ways with our fears. And one way to do that is to start starting to look at those beautiful images, rather than always defaulting back to the ones that are fearful for us. So beautiful images, beautiful stories, beautiful scenarios, beautiful births. Finding the right provider, finding a midwife, hopefully. Important. Yeah, finding a midwife, hopefully. But one of the ways to do that is to first hire a doula, because your doula is going to be
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Because we know
yeah.
where the providers are that do real service,
Right.
not lip service.
That's right. And all the doulas really see all the doctors
Right.
and all the midwives in all of the hospitals and at home, and could really give you the bottom line onto what is going to really be happening to you or with you during your pregnancy and during your birth. And so you really want to empower yourself to be able to make the choices that you really want to make, and not because you think that that's the way you're supposed to be, but the way you really want to be. And you really kind of almost need someone to coach you through that part of decision making. And it's really super important. Hire a doula first, and she will help to kind of bring all of these things in for you. And then hopefully you find a midwife. Your home birth midwife works really very much in the same way as coaching you and leading you through the different parts of not just, making labor and birth safe for you, but really creating a production that is going to be safe. You're safe for you, safe for your baby.
I know we have some people that are all over the world, but in the US, if someone wanted to find a home birth midwife, do you know how they could? Is there a website or?
Well, you could go onto the, I find that wherever you are in the US, that you find to go to the DONA website, the Doulas of North America, and talk to some of the doulas, because the doulas are going to let you know who the midwives are.
Okay.
Then you can also go to the American College of Nurse Midwives, the ACNM, or to the North America Registry of Midwives, which is called MANA. And in that way, whatever is legal in your state, or whoever are the midwives that you trust, and the way you find that are through the doulas. But I can't stress enough that you need to find a provider. And I'm sorry to say, but what happens in the US is that because of our laws, and also around the world, and we can get into this and talk politically about this, and I don't want to, but the problem, of course, is that when you don't have access to good maternity care like midwives, you end up having unassisted home births. And I'll tell you, I love being at births, and I love sharing births with women. And I think women would love to find anybody that is trained and really understands about birth, about some of the complications that can happen, to find a midwife that will tend to her at her birth, because we love being with you and we just want you to love being with us. So that's my thing about unassisted home birth.
Yeah. Fantastic, though. But I want to say I love your advice that your doula can help you find a midwife, because that's not U.S. based, that's around the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I'm talking to the doula trainer queen here, but it really is true. And I was a doula, and I was a doula before the word doula ever was a name. Yeah. We called ourselves monitrices, which are also, or la femme, which are also women who help women to give birth. And that's how I got into working with a home birth midwife and becoming a midwife myself. But I feel that the doulas really do know what is going on in the birthing world in your community, and to take advantage of that. It's really, really important to find childbirth education that empowers you, and that is not part of an institution, but is independent, meaning, again, the doulas know the childbirth educators. Debra does a beautiful Pain to Power, and I love your class. It's so beautiful. You. And what Debra does, and I really stress, is that she is training you internally. So you have 9 months to get it together, to deal with your fear, to deal with all of the things that trigger you, the things that you really want to create for a good, healthy, natural labor and birth. And preparation and pregnancy is really where to go with that. You want to be in your body. You want to take yoga classes, prenatal yoga, or you want to go and dance. I say, if you don't have any money, get onto YouTube, find some prenatal yoga on YouTube. If you have a little money, you can actually join classes on YouTube, but you can also just put music on and just dance for 20 minutes a day and just find really fun, whatever you love, reggae or, you know, metal, and just dance to it and just enjoy your body and getting out of your head and into your body. Which brings me to watch what you're reading. Yes. Which is really, really important. There is
really important.
There is a lot of fear-based stuff out there. And Pam England, in her book, Birthing from Within, which I love, and I have a list of 6 books that I do love, says tack on an hour for every book that you read. Now, I think what she's really saying there is that the more you're in your head, the more you try to micromanage your birth, the more you're outside of your body. And that really brings us back to the hormones too. We want to really cultivate this beautiful balance and chemistry of the hormones. And it starts in pregnancy.
Yes.
Okay, so we know that. And then as labor gets closer and we start making colostrum, all of these hormones start, you know, growing and growing until actually parturition happens, which we really don't know exactly what starts that, but we do know that it's a really fascinating culmination of all of the hormones. So really, really important, again, to read beautiful stories, to read books that are going to empower you, that are going to make you feel beautiful, really empower you. And you'll know when you're reading the books which ones really are the ones that you really love.
And do you want to give your
I'm
6?
going to give my 6 right now.
I want to hear your 6.
Okay, so of course I have to bring the first one as being Orgasmic Birth.
Oh, thank you.
The second one is Birthing from Within by Pamela England. Ina May has 2 books. One is her newer book, which is Guide to Childbirth. The other one is Spiritual Midwifery. And I love The Birth Partner by Penny Simkin, and that it's a practical book, and it's really wonderful for the birth partner. The other one is Lindsay Bliss's book, The Doula's Guide to Empowering Your Birth, which is a beautiful book, and just, I mean, really some real gems in there. And the second one, which is a brand new book out by Ana Lopez, which is called Intuitive Birth, which is, I started reading it, and I'm just like, you're going to love this.
I know, I can't wait. It's on my reading list. I'm leaving soon for Australia, and it's going to take me the 17 hours.
She did a beautiful, beautiful job.
I can't wait.
And I really recommend that. So that's Ana Lopez. And I think Ana Lopez handle on Instagram is Mind Body Baby. Oh. And of course, Lindsay Bliss is Lindsay Bliss. And of course, Orgasmic Birth.
Yeah.
So those are the ones, and then you can follow them on Instagram too. I wanted to tell you what Christina said about the way her birth was and how hormones helped her birth. And she said, they, meaning the hormones, took me into another place, sort of like this birth land, where I was able to deeply connect with other women who have birthed before me. And that kind of brings me to one of the next things that I would love to introduce to you, and that is to create a birthing altar or a puja or just a space in your bedroom or wherever your special places where you can honor your ancestors, your grandmothers, your other children, your mother, your great-grandmother, and then put pictures, flowers, little sayings. You might want to pick angel cards or whatever. Like I should really show them here. Let me, I'm going to get something.
Well, do you want me to follow it?
That's okay. That's okay. I'll bring this one down. I'm going to bring this one down and this
Valeriana's office here is so beautiful.
So this one was in the middle of a client's beautiful altar. And this is this beautiful woman who sits in the lotus position with her really pendulous breasts and her big belly. And that was in the middle of a birthing altar. And around it, she had flowers and pictures of her grandmother and her mother and her daughter. And this woman was having a VBAC and was told that she could never have a vaginal birth because her baby was too big and her pelvis was too small. And she had a 10.5-pound baby, which was 2 pounds bigger than her other baby. So that was a really incredibly powerful birth.
Beautiful.
This is Esquina. She's Mexican. And as you can see, she's powerful. And she is birthing her baby. It's coming right out. You see where her knees are? They're not spread all the way out, really giving a lot more space to her perineum and her pelvis, but she's amazing. So those are the two that I love most. So also for a birthing altar, which I really love, is an exercise to do. So you have this birthing altar, but you want to create some rituals and ceremonies around how you can prepare for your birth. And some of those could be difficult and some of them are really beautiful, but it's a process and it really is very empowering to do it in a process. And that is that if we start to really look at some of our fears, and Pam England, her book, gives us an opportunity to do that. But if you start looking at your fears, looking at the things that trigger you and start journaling about that, things might come up, like things that you've heard as a child, things that you've heard from your family, limited beliefs of the way that you can birth, that you feel that, oh no, that's not for me, that's for that woman, or I'm too small, or my pelvis is too narrow, or I don't have any breasts, I'm never going to be able to breastfeed, or I was, an only child, I can't mother, or I've been a professional for so many years, how can I be a mother? I mean, how do I make that transition, that threshold experience into motherhood? So there's all of these things that hold us back and limit us. And it's really nice that as we start to journal and we just don't care and we just keep writing, these things will come up. It's really wonderful that when that comes up, to pull those out of your journaling and start writing those down. I can't, I'm afraid, I feel limited, how can I? And really look at that and honor it. Look at it and say, hey, that's lives in me and that's okay. Because I need to accept that, but I don't need it right now, because I'm going to have a baby and I need to be able to put this where it belongs and move on to the next phase of my life, because pregnancy is such an amazing opportunity for personal growth.
Yes, in every way.
In every single way. So what you do practically is you get that and you write it and you fold it and go outside and you burn it. Or if you don't have it outside where you can burn, you could drown it. Just cover it with water and smush it and mush it and flush it down the toilet and just let it go and just feel that it is really just like lifting off of your body, releasing it and just getting it out of your head.
Yes.
And then what you want to do, you want to replace it with something.
Yes. Always.
So you always, right. Always. So there's two things you can do. One, you can write, well, two things that you are going to do in this process. So the first thing is you're going to write my ideal but practical birth. And so what that is it's a birth vision, basically. And knowing what a birth vision is being able to surrender the end, because what really needs to happen is not in our control, but we can have a vision of what we want. So you look at the things that didn't serve you, and now you look at the things that will serve you, things like affirmations. There are so many different affirmations. I keep this one around, then a client will just, pull another one, and I keep this pile of affirmations. You can find them online. You make your own. You can just find affirmations and you could write them yourself. I suggest that if you have another child, get some crayons and some paper and draw some pictures and write your affirmations in there. I've had women who've just like taken them right off the internet. They printed them, you know, and they just put them around. But you can also put them on your altar until your birth. You could put a candle on, you can honor your ancestors and yourself in all of these beautiful ways by putting a flower on it, or something that is very important to you, like a cross or a crystal or whatever your faith is, that is going to be something that is going to connect you with the spiritual world, because basically we're really there a lot when we are in labor. Gotta get my notes.
Yep.
So rituals and ceremonies, okay? So facing your fears, the birth altar, your ancestors, creating your birth vision, your affirmation and your art, and of course your environment. So that, I would say, is something as you're getting closer to your birth that you want to really create your environment. Your environment is either going to be in your home, because you're going to have a home birth, or it's going to be in a bag that's going to be brought either to a birth center or to a hospital, because you need to create your environment that works for you, because you need to feel most comfortable in the place that you're giving birth. There is no sense in trying to do a hospital birth if everything inside you says, but I don't feel comfortable here. You can always change. You can always find something or someone else.
Yes.
Same goes with if you're thinking of a home birth, but it just feels like maybe not right. Maybe not this birth. Maybe my next birth. Listen to your inner wisdom and do what you really need to do to create the best environment for you to really allow those hormones to be on board, full force, I should say. Which really brings me down to something that's really important, and that is the people at your birth. And we kind of touched on that a little bit before. We really are affected by our surroundings when we're in labor. When the hormones are in full force, and we have somebody who we invited to our births because they wanted to be there, and not because we wanted them there, or we thought maybe we wanted them there, but there was always that little voice that said, oh, do I really want them there? Or I'm doing this for them and not me. You really have to look at that. And I want to give you a little hint in how to go about uninviting people. I tell my clients, and I know Debra has probably said this to a lot of her clients, to blame it on us. If you feel that this person is not going to be beneficial to you, if you're going to feel at all self-conscious, or if that person is there for themselves, or you feel you want to invite them because you want to show them a beautiful natural birth, that's all the wrong reasons. And the reasons you need people at your birth is because you need their beauty, their touch, their words. So they're going to be a team player. Now, I have to say a lot, there are moms that are amazing, and there are moms that are really worried. We have to remember that, especially at home, if you are planning a home birth could be a 30-hour birth. We have to be ready for that. But we believe you can do it. But our families don't get it. They don't understand that birth can take a long time. You don't just break your water, feel like you have to push and go to have your baby. These are this is what media teaches us, and this is what you expect in hospitals when you're having epidural and Pitocin. It doesn't go like that. Yeah. Pitocin epidural births are things that people are accustomed to when they hear, oh, I had a 12-hour labor, or I had a 15-hour labor. You could have a 24-hour or a 30-hour labor or even more. And families get really, really nervous. So we have to save them from that pain, and we have to save our own labors that hesitation, because it's going to really, really tack on hours and hours of labor if you're not feeling really comfortable. And alone, or I wouldn't say alone, but
with people
private.
Private. Feeling loved, safe, and private, right, is so, so important.
Okay. I got another wonderful text. It says, hormones at birth made me feel like I was in an altered state, a lot like a dream. It allowed me to let go and just be with the experience. It took me out of my head and put me into my body. I knew exactly what to do. I say to women and their families, the partners that will be with them at birth, that being at a woman's birth is like a perfectly choreographed dance with no rehearsals. Everybody knows exactly what their role is and what needs to happen. So you definitely want to invite those people who are going to be there for you and assist in that, the flow of that birth, of that dance. Let me see if I can find another one.
Well, and I just say too, like, energy is contagious. Love is contagious, right? We want to run the energy of love. And when someone is running their own fear or their own emotions, that really holds us back. And as doulas and midwives, right, we can feel that. We can feel when the energy isn't in that flow a lot, and really start to question who is holding that back for that birthing woman. Right. And so important, though, that they ask themselves that even long before. Right.
I mean, I think also when you look back, if you've had another baby, or if you're looking forward and you're thinking and you're anticipating a certain level of hormone play in your birth, it could be that you're expecting one thing when maybe something else is happening that's silent. Your hormones in there, or you're in play. Some women can feel that it's happening, and I think that some women just can't, but it's there. And sometimes they don't kick in till later. And somebody sent me this beautiful one, and it says, I've been thinking about this. And it's funny because I have mixed feelings about how my hormones helped. And I think this is just so beautiful because we really are looking at reality. You know, sometimes this is what happens. I felt like my oxytocin didn't really kick in enough to help me get labor going, but it surely did at the end. But I will say immediately afterwards, it helped me breastfeed and bond. My body knew just what to do and what my baby needed. And I believed it was 100% hormone driven.
That's beautiful.
Isn't that great? Yeah, that's really beautiful. Let's see. I think one more.
Yeah, and then we'll open it up for Q&A.
Yeah, and see what everybody has to say. Let me see. So Cassie said, I don't know if they were hormones or what, but I know that for a fact that my positive attitude helped the pain. I was excited for labor. Thank you. I had my glasses on. And I loved every contraction and I welcomed it. So that was one other thing that I wanted to just address, and that would be the end. And that is really creating a new relationship with pain. The pain, I never say that labor is not painful, because it's unfair, because then people will say, well, what did you call it then? I think that when we create another relationship with the pain, we are finding the words that we don't have that are the words that we don't have. So there are some tribes around the world that don't have the word pain. They use other words or descriptions of their labor. The pain of labor is not the pain of a broken bone or the pain of an illness. When we have that kind of pain, we need to do exactly what our bodies need to do. And that usually is to get help,
Right.
to immobilize the broken bone, to find something to alleviate the pain because we know we're sick,
Right.
or we're going to be handicapped unless we take care of it. The pain of labor is something different. Grantley Dick Reed, in his book, Childbirth Without Fear, which is really the gold standard of childbirth education, talked about fear and pain, and that if we could put pain and fear in different perspectives, if we can look at fear as being the overriding mover of pain, then we can see how pain really changes our labor. If we could move into labor without fear, with knowing that what our bodies are creating in terms of labor is what our bodies can handle. When we are sick, it's from the outside. When we have a broken bone, it's happened from the outside. When we are in labor, it is hormonal driven. And with that, if we open up to it and kind of fall and surrender into that place, we can have a better experience of our labor and our birth. And I think that I'm done.
That was fantastic. And I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Everything you said
Yeah.
was so well said
Yeah,
and
thank you.
beautiful.
Yeah.
And such preparation. And I see we have quite a few of you with us right now. I'd love if someone wants to either type into the chat box. Maybe there's something Valeriana said that you might have a comment or agree with, or maybe a question along the lines of running our hormones and finding pleasure in birth. I'd love to hear some of your thoughts. And I see that it's not specific about pleasure, but a personal question for her. I couldn't get a midwife because I have epilepsy and was having a VBAC. The ones I found thought it was too high risk, even though my seizures are controlled and I haven't had a seizure in over a year.
That's tough. That's very, very difficult because, sometimes pregnancy, because of the pregnancy hormones, can create a physical environment that could create, you could have a seizure. So that's a real hard one. I would say that maybe not a home birth, but why not a hospital birth with a midwife? I see no reason why. I mean, when I've worked in hospitals and we took care of women who had all kinds of high risks. I think that a home birth midwife might find that really difficult. And there are a lot of home birth midwives that are already just uncomfortable with VBAC. Right. So that would be a combination that might be an issue. And it's true. I mean, there are women that have seizure disorders that are fine. They've never had seizures for a really long time. Right. But people, other practitioners don't want to take the risk. So if you could find a midwife, again, go get a doula and find out who's out there in the hospitals who can really give you the kind of birth that you want, that also feels comfortable working with a doctor, collaborating. Maybe you may have to see a doctor once or twice, that could do a VBAC in the hospital and that feels comfortable with what's considered high risk.
Yes.
I hope that helped.
I hope so too. And what I would say, because you've talked about bringing that ambiance, bringing
Yes.
that environment, is really we can create home birth in the hospital. And it's not always easy to do, but as Valeriana said, doulas know who are our caregivers, and hopefully you have a midwife in your region, but I know that I teach in parts of the world where people don't always have access to midwives, but we sometimes find doctors where I say their MD stands for midwife in disguise. And, if you can find that caregiver that will really support you, it's possible, even when you need to be in a different environment than what was your choice, to still have the birth you desire.
Right, and which is really important, to create a birth plan, but to create a birth plan with in mind that the nurses in hospitals have to follow a protocol. And if you kind of become part of, if you understand where they're coming from and try to kind of catch them with honey rather than, you know, you can, what is it? You can catch more bees with honey than vinegar.
Yes.
Just to understand that they want to get you in and out in a way that is going to be comfortable for them, but at the same time they don't want to be threatened, and they don't want to feel that they are going to be put out and that you're going to give them a hard time. And that's really hard for a lot of nurses. But if you can find a nurse and then have the doula that knows the nurses that have been to this hospital, and then if you can create your birth plan with certain terminology in there not to threaten them, you probably can get a lot more accomplished in getting your birth plan wishes
Yes.
satisfied. Is that,
yeah, that's a good way of putting it. I see another question, and we have 40 weeks and 1 day right now. Well, congratulations. That's exciting. But they're pushing you to induce, and you're with your teacher, Vivian, who says no. So what would you say to that?
Well, if you go online and start researching, the March of Dimes actually says that they are recommending that you don't get induced before 41 weeks. Okay, so really, if you really see now, it's really 41 weeks for inductions. And in France, they actually changed the due date to 41 weeks. So, you know, we are looking at many, many women who have long gestations, way longer than 40 weeks. First-time moms, it's really 10 days over their due date is normal. So we call it the due month. We don't call it the due date. And I think this is a big, huge problem. If you look at some of the research and do some online work and see what you can find, and maybe have a conversation with your doctor that you are, or your midwife, that you are really taking responsibility, and that at 41 weeks you're really happy to have you can have a biophysical profile now, which is an ultrasound to look at the placenta and the fluid and the movement of the baby, the breathing exercises of the baby. If you can have that done now, and if he could then, or she could then give you some more time and then repeat it and then give you some more time till 41 weeks. In the meantime, you can go have acupuncture. You can do some acupressure. You could do moxa. Acupuncture is wonderful for getting the baby and just having a conversation, so you don't sound like a victim. You don't sound like you're just like getting in there with your, you know, heels, you know, in there, but you are going in there with, hey, look, I hear what you're saying. I understand your comfort level is 40 weeks, but can we look at this? Can we look at 41 weeks? Can we give you some comfort in doing these biophysical profiles, and then see what happens at 41 weeks, see if you could push it a little more?
Great advice. And I would add too, as much as like acupuncture and all those things are good physically, you talk so much about emotions. And I find a lot of times, one, the baby just needs more time, but sometimes we need that time emotionally. And I often say, sometimes really check in with yourself. Where are your emotions? And I know when you're being pressured to be induced, that's even harder, because emotionally you get triggered more into anxiety or fear, which is running our stress hormones. And nobody will go into labor when they're in a stressful state, right? To release oxytocin, we have to get into calm and connection. So it may sound crazy, but I have a prescription for people sometimes to put on what I call the chick flicks.
Oh, I was just going to say movies, funny movies.
That you laugh.
I love them. Yes, absolutely.
Laugh, cry. You want to express emotion. And the more you express emotion, and movies sometimes do it to us, right? That sometimes that brings you into another space where you can then tap into your own emotions, and they also can flow.
Simply Ballroom is a great one.
Yes.
One of these days I'm going to get a list of good movies to watch,
Right.
you know, and,
To start labor,
yeah,
right?
to start
And
labor,
orgasmic
yeah.
birth.
And
I can't tell you
right.
how many people
Yes,
have told me
that's
they've
true.
begun labor watching our film.
Mhm.
Sometimes I even thought we should do a focus group and test people for oxytocin.
Oh, I've always wanted to do that.
Going in before the movie and at the end of the movie.
Did
because
we ever talk about that?
we talked about it, and we have so many people go into labor. So another option.
But I also think that providers and anybody's oxytocin levels go up watching the film. So
Yeah.
I just think, but I've had women who've gone into labor with seeing the film. So that's very, 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 very important. Yeah, that's great.
So I
see what else is there.
Aw, thank you. You guys are awesome. Thank you. Zooming from, I'm not sure where that is. Barbados. Wow. Oh, fantastic. It's so nice to see people from around the world. Anyone else with a comment or a question or something to add? I see we've got quite a great group there from around the world.
I would love to know if anybody has had a baby already and they could really share their experiences of maybe what held them back. And what, zoom them forward in their labor. And we can have a conversation about, what might have been the things that either stood in the way or kind of fostered them to have a faster labor, or, who were the people at their birth that they wish they didn't have, or what would they have done differently? Because that's something when you do have a second baby to create in your birth vision. What are the things that worked? What are the things that didn't work? And writing the things down that didn't work, and then pulling from there of your journaling of what are the things that did work and creating that birth vision. So can anybody share anything like that? That would be great.
Sure.
I think I might even have another.
And I want to just say, as I'm seeing the comments come in, I love Orgasmic Doulas from Barbados. Big shout out to you. And Anna Beck from Peru. I've just been invited to come do a full day workshop on orgasmic birth and pain to power with pleasure in Peru in February. So stay in touch on that. I hope to meet you in person there. Marianne asks, can you mention the reading list once more?
Oh, sure.
You have that there, right?
It's right here, I wrote it down.
And while you're getting that, I love this comment, Michelle. Fear holds you back. The zoom forward was the fact I wanted my suffering to stop.
Oh.
The hospital birth was not personal at all. We want birth plans here. Yes.
Yeah.
And where is here again? Or that's from Barbados, I see from back there. Yes. Yeah, I think birth plans I tend to not like the word plan, because sometimes when it doesn't go by plan, we feel like we failed, and no one ever fails in childbirth. So I encourage vision, preferences, dreams, desires, something more fluid.
Oh, I like preferences, especially when you go into a hospital. It sounds like preference would be something they can wrap their heads around, huh?
Yeah, I find that the providers, right, are more gentle when it's a preference than a plan.
Yeah.
Plans sometimes get pushback.
Yeah, and again, just remember that the nurses don't want to be threatened.
Yeah.
They really want you to, kind of do what they want to do. So how do you get what you want by also satisfying them? So it's a finesse. A good doula can totally help. And hopefully if you have a midwife or a doctor that's on board with your preferences, that the nurses could also get on board with it as well. So those books. Okay, so Orgasmic Birth, Birthing from Within by Pam England. That's a really wonderful book also to do with a partner, because it's a bit of a workbook on the inside. For instance, affirmations and birth art is a big thing in Birthing from Within. Ina May Gaskin, Gaskin, she is a midwife the midwife's midwife. She's from the farm in Tennessee in the US. She wrote 2 books. Well, she's written a bunch of books, but the 2 books that I really love is Spiritual Midwifery. And that was from the farm in the 1970s, 60s and 70s. And the one that's most new is The Guide to Childbirth. And that has all those beautiful birth stories in the beginning, and then kind of a guide to how to plan your home birth. Then there's The Doula's Guide to Empowering Your Birth by Lindsay Bliss, B-L-I-S-S, and her handle on Instagram is Lindsay Bliss. An Intuitive Birth by Anna Lopez, and her handle on Instagram is Mind Body Baby, B-A-B-I-E, Anna Lopez.
Thank you.
I also wanted to say another thing about the images around birth and the birth art and your affirmation. If you ever wanted to have an exercise to do in a pregnancy, which is really fun, something called soul cards, and you can find soul cards online, and it's just different ways of, you get a card about this size and you get images. You can either paint images, draw images, or you can get them from magazines. It's kind of like a vision, like for instance, let me bring one of these over.
Yeah.
So here is, this is from a vision board.
Yeah.
This is the healing place that is kind of like my cottage here, which is my office and a beautiful place to just be. And then here are some soul cards. And so I wanted to go through different parts of my life, and this one was breast health. So I just found different images from magazines. This is about breast and really honoring our breasts. This is a birth with a baby in the lotus. This one is an elephant bowing, and it just was just that beautiful butterfly, the 2 contrasts of heavy and light and being on the earth and also being lofty. This is just yoga and the images of nature. And this one is the circle of women, how women gather and how we find peace and power within each other when we are together. So these are soul cards, and you can find that you could create those as well. And I wanted to bring that into my talk. I just didn't want to leave it.
Okay, and we have just a few more minutes, but I see a comment. I had my mom there, and she's a worrywart. Oh no. She was supposed to be supporting me, but ended up being all stressed and fear. I ended with a forced C-section, and that's why I'm trying for a VBAC at home without the stress. Oh,
that is just really hard.
Yeah, really,
because
really
we
hard.
do, you know, we just don't know. And that's why we're so passionate about, you know, bringing this information to women before something like this has to happen. You didn't know that. How were you to know that your mother was going to get so stressed? Of course she was stressed. And, you know, look, my experience with my own daughter when she decided to have a baby, and I'm a midwife, and I was not her midwife. My friend was her midwife, and I was not allowed in her room or anywhere near her because she needed to do this on her own. I was happy that she was able to tell me that, but I was stressed. She's my baby. I've had the same long labors with my own clients, but because it was my daughter, it was something different. I can't even imagine what it's like not knowing what birth is like and only having images from media and from my friends and, you know, people sitting, you know, in a restaurant or playing cards with, you know, telling me, oh, and I had this problem. Oh, my daughter had this and all of these things. I mean, and then coming into a situation, I'm so sorry that had to happen. And I hope that other women hear that and really take it to heart, to think about the people at your birth and what kind of influence they have.
She said she's a nurse.
Oh,
it
yeah.
just made it worse.
Mm-hmm.
Aw, thank you for the beautiful insight. Well,
thank you for that. That's very important to hear, and for other women to hear as well.
yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. And
next time,
yeah,
she's not going to be over.
Well,
you know what you got to do?
She's planning the VBAC right now,
at
right?
home, right?
Yeah.
But you're going to let her know your due date is 2 weeks later than what it actually is. Okay? You're going to tell her, oh, the midwife changed my due date. I had an ultrasound, whatever you want to say. So nobody is in your sphere of influence when you are due. So you could feel more comfortable and relaxed. Again, talking about those hormones, really kicking in when you don't have any of the stress, when you're on Instagram and on Facebook and people are calling and texting you and saying, is the baby here yet? What's happening? Don't you know? Did you have an ultrasound? Your waters can go low. You're already 41 weeks. Well, if you're 41 weeks, but you really are 43 weeks because you already had your baby.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying? I should really say that backwards. Right. If you tell everybody you're 2 weeks ahead of, you're going to have the baby 2 weeks later, then when you go into labor, you don't let anybody know you're in labor. Right. You just turn off your phones, get them used to you not, responding quickly. And then when you really actually do, nobody really knows because you've already had the baby. Oh, the baby came early.
Good advice, right?
It's not my advice. These are what clients tell me that they did.
Well, Lindsay says, knowing to speak my fears out loud, I was fearful of the pushing. And then when it came to that point, it was amazing to see how the energy shifted. And I felt so strong and held by my support during that time.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Oh,
thank you, Lindsay. Beautiful.
I love the holistic view of the experience. Thank you. And here, sacred space. I've got my sister guarding the door. That's her job. Oh,
very good. Beautiful.
I love that. That's a beautiful job for someone.
And it could be the door is a metaphor, right?
Right.
For our space.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Totally. Well, I want to thank you, Valeriana, for this time so much. It's so wonderful. Love you too.
I'm so happy to do this.
Oh, it's
this is
so nice.
Important.
And thank you so much. It was so nice. You gave us a good excuse to get together.
Yeah.
I'm so happy Valeriana could share her wisdom with all of you. And I really hope that you will birth this forward, as we say. This wisdom has to be shared. It's a time of really reclaiming birth. And for all of you that are pregnant and with us, I truly wish you a positive, gentle, pleasurable birth, wherever that will be. And for anyone that wants more information, what's your website? Where can they find you?
So Homebirth Midwifery is my website. And if you're not planning a home birth, or you're not in the New York, New Jersey area, there's definitely some really beautiful birth stories on there that are very empowering. Like what brought women to want to have a home birth and what were their challenges. And also there's all these really great safety articles. And my Instagram is also Homebirth Midwifery.
So that's great. And join me on Pain to Power Childbirth. If you haven't explored yet, we're offering our free sexy sample. If you go to paintopowerchildbirth.com, you can sign up, and it's pretty extensive free module that you can see of our classes. And if you want more, join us. We have a lot more. It's paintopowerchildbirth.com, not paint, pain. I love someone said paint. Ha ha ha. I like that. Sorry. It's coming from New Jersey, right? At the end of the day, my slang. paintopowerchildbirth.com. So enjoy our free sample, and please let us know. Follow us on Instagram. I'm on Orgasmic Birth Instagram, or my name, Debra Pascali-Bonaro. So I hope to see your comments later, and we hope to meet you another time.
Thank you so much for coming, everybody. It was wonderful to virtually meet you.
And yes, there will be a recording coming. It just might not be immediate. My beautiful pleasure coordinator, Megan, has a lot on her plate when we had our team meeting today. So it might be a week or so out, but know that if you're in this recording, you will get the follow-up recording of it. So thank you, everyone. Blessed day or night, wherever you are in the world.
Bye.